right, everybody, welcome to the next episode of Muckin N Grindin. We have the Penguins winning another one. Went through overtime, go to a shootout. Have a special treat for you tonight. I got my boy Big Dave on the show tonight. What's up? What's happening, brother? How you been,
What's
brother?
up, buddy?
We're doing all right,
Still
man.
breathing.
We're doing all right.
Avoiding everybody's favorite new virus.
Yeah, we're every day above the dirt's a good one, brother. As we watched the Penguins go to another overtime game, and then this one eventually goes to a shootout. Tristan Jarry made some good saves. As again, the defense looks suspect throughout the whole game. Still not. I would rather see them break up that top pair of Letang and Dumoulin. Maybe put Letang with Cody Ceci and put Dumoulin with John Marino. Pierre Oliver Joseph. Put him with somebody. But I've seen enough of those two together where now it's starting to become a problem with turnovers and not being able to have each other's back. It's time to split them. I don't know what you think, but I feel it's time to split
them. They certainly look sloppy. Tonight was a perfect example of that. I really don't like the way that pairing breaks the puck out, and I noticed that a lot more tonight, especially in the first period when Letang and Dumoulin really just looked awful. And that kind of continued into the second, and then they looked better in the third. I don't know if I would split them up. Because it is the one pairing that is consistent in the fact that they kind of are that there's chemistry there, especially with all the injuries. I agree with you though. John Marino is the heir apparent. To me, it would make sense to have him and Dumoulin playing together at least a little bit more often. That way, down the road when the time comes, that's going to be your top pair probably. Yeah. If not next year, certainly the following year. So I would like to see Marino getting more chances with Dumoulin, and maybe that does help. But the question is who do you put with Letang? Cody Ceci, I think, is a right-handed defenseman, so you're not going to put him on his offside. Letang can't play his offside very well. So you're either going to put him with a kid like Pierre Oliver Joseph, who, do you really want to throw that kid into the fire right away with Letang?
No, I don't want
to. Weedle playing his offside. So I don't know. I think you're almost stuck playing him with him and Dumoulin together until, the group starts to get healthy again. Then maybe you could kind of toy with it a little bit. But Letang is starting to be a concern.
Yeah, I'm kind of I know they love Chad Ruhwedel and everything, and he's serviceable. He is a number 7 or number 8 guy. I with these injuries, there's got to be a better option. I just don't understand the love affair they have with him. I get it. You know what I mean? He's speedy, but he has no size. His puck moving ability is not the greatest. He can't clear anybody from out in front of the net because he has no size. So, it definitely hinders that. But, with the injuries that you got 4 guys that are hurt. Kutzman, Pedersen, Ricola, Matheson. That hurts. We're looking at a mash unit already, and we're game 5, game 6. You know what I mean? This is ridiculous. It's almost like we're doing this same thing every year, beginning of the year, where we have a bunch of guys hurt. And I hate the fact that we have it's all upper body injuries, and we're got longer term.
Yeah.
No, I come on. We know it's an upper body injury. Everybody knows that. How long? How long are we talking? Is there a possibility to go out and get somebody? I know you're tight up against the cap. I think you're like 1.3 off the cap. But if they're on longer term, maybe you just, hey, we got 51 games left. Let's put one of these guys on long-term IR and just say, hey, you know what? Sit out the rest of the year and then try to make that deal. But speaking of deals, I saw it's Pierre-Luc Dubois getting traded to Winnipeg for Patrick Laine. I'm pretty sure Nathan Gerbe was thrown in from Columbus. I want to double check this just to make sure. Sometimes yeah, let's try to get technology to work here. Hey, there it goes. Unbelievable. So I prepare for physical series. Blah, 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 blah. So far, Winnipeg. Okay, here we go. Transactions. NHL. The Jets have reassigned David Gustafson to the Manitoba Moose and placed Patrick Laine and Nate Thompson on injured reserve. So, per Winnipeg's Twitter account, there's nothing happened so far. And by Darren Drager, it says, my sense of canvassing sources tonight, Columbus is closing in on a trade involving Pierre-Luc Dubois. It's a complicated process. It could be resolved as early as tomorrow. Teams have been told they're out. Hard to say who's in, but it's believed Winnipeg is among them. And these guys are all trying to be who's first and who's, I got this one first. John Shannon has the Blue Jackets traded Pierre-Luc Dubois, Nathan Gerbe, and a 2022 second-round pick for Patrick Laine and restricted free agent Jack Roslovic. The whole I have to be first reporting stuff when it actually hasn't even happened yet. It's kind of hard anymore. I mean, look, how about reporting it correctly and then worry about the who did it first? Who cares? How about Kekalainen, the GM in Columbus, is the one who did it correctly. He's the first one who reported it. So if that is true, what do you think? I mean, considering Laine is on IR.
When it comes to Columbus, it's only a matter of time before Torts is gone, as far as I'm concerned. It really is. He every place he goes, he has a shelf life. And to me, the fact that you're going to pick that coach over a 22, 23-year-old centerman, a number one center that you could really build a solid franchise around, and they're not far away from having some really solid parts to be a legitimate contender. The fact that you're willing to send him down the road for Tortorella, I think is a little short-sighted. Now, I look at that roster, and, Werenski and Seth Jones are two of the best defensemen in hockey. Is Dubois a top 10 defense or a top 10 center? Yeah, it fringes. But he's certainly their best. 20. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely top 20. Their goaltending situation is kind of up in the air. But again, they're really just a couple of pieces away from being a legitimate, contender. Yeah. And when it comes down to it, with the core they have and the use of that core, would you rather build around them or would you rather have Torts? Now, I know the other issue is always going to be this. Columbus is not a desirable destination. Most guys do not want to play in that market. So you're never going to attract the big free agents. That's why, they never got Panarin to sign, and it's why they never got Johansson. That's why they never got, they traded Rick Nash. You look at all the names that have come and gone from Columbus over the years. It's just not necessarily a very desirable place to play. So, I'm sure that plays into it too. But to me, the fact that this 22-year-old kid who is a top-line center wants out of there, I don't think it's necessarily because it's a small market. I think it's because of the guy pulling the strings behind the bench. And,
absolutely.
Whether you wanted to – would you rather have the number one center for the next 10 years or would you rather have Tortorella? I'd rather have the number one center.
Oh, come on. You'd rather have Torts. You'd rather have Torts. I mean, he's great fodder for, your post-game presser. I mean, seriously, like, I get why. Like, I watched a game last night where Pierre-Luc Dubois was going into the corner, like, and he was going into the corner against Tyler Johnson. Tyler Johnson's 5'8" and 175 pounds soaking wet, and he pulled up
Mhm.
and let Tyler Johnson go ahead and take the puck. So Pierre-Luc Dubois only had like 3 minutes and 55 seconds of ice time, and then he sat there playing with his fingernails the rest of the game. And there's video to prove it. And it's sad because he just kept looking up at the screen, looking around. Like he knew he wasn't. And I'm pretty sure Torts went to him and said, "You're done for the night." And
You're done.
to be honest, that doesn't look good for him either. That he basically quit on his team. Like if I'm a teammate and I know you want out of here. I get it. You don't want to play for this jackass. You don't want to play in this shit town because I mean, it's a small market. I mean, there ain't nothing you can do about it. But if you quit going, you don't want to muck and grind going into the corners. Haha, show plug. I'm pissed at you because once we get into that locker room in between periods, I'm walking up to you and like, dude, you either get into the corner and start playing this game, or I'm knocking your teeth down your throat. Because I'm out here busting my ass, and you're sulking like a little 3-year-old. Give me a freaking break, dude. Play the freaking game. Like, let's go. I mean, because now, I mean, what's to say? Okay, just throwing it out there. Say Pittsburgh GMJR makes a deal for this guy. If I'm Sully, I'm like, F you, dude. You ain't playing here for me. Because him and Torts are buddies anyway. So, I mean, I'm pretty sure it would never, ever happen anyway. But just as a hypothetical, Sully would be like, no, you quit on these guys. What are you going to do when things don't go right here and you don't get your way? You're going to do the same thing? You're going to pout and you're going to freaking, just 86 everything? No, you're a horrible teammate. I don't give a shit who you are. And plus, you haven't been around that long to be as powerful as you think you are. He's going to end up in a shit show somewhere else, and he's going to have a shit team with him, and he's going to go, oh, well, maybe I should have stayed in the spot where I could build, because Torts is either going to probably get fired this year or next year. I mean, it's a matter of time. You know what I mean? Like you said, it's going to happen. But whatever.
And here's the other thing too. When you look at that deal, you're getting the same thing back in Patrick Laine. You're getting a guy that's not exactly.
He doesn't want to play
He's no Alexander Ovechkin. Does he have that capability? Absolutely. He has that capability if he's consistent, but he's not. So he's coming from a small market team, and if you can even say a small market team when it's a Canadian team. He's coming from a situation that really, I mean, you look at 2 years ago, they were considered a Stanley Cup contender. And then, they traded guys like Trouba away and a couple other guys left, So, if you're Dubois, you're going up there and you're a number 2 center because you're not going to be playing ahead of Mark Scheifele. And your best scoring option on the wing just got traded for you because, I mean, let's face it, Laine is probably their best pure scorer. Yeah. So, you're basically replacing like for like in both situations. And let's face it, if Laine isn't working in Winnipeg, he sure as hell ain't going to work playing with John Tortorella.
No, because who's he going to play with in Columbus? He's got nobody he's going to play with. He's going to have 2 great defensemen on the power play. That's it.
I don't even know who their number 2 center is off the top of my head.
I could. We have the technology. So while we're looking this up, because I'm just going to go right onto our fantasy thing and look and check their whole roster that way, as eventually when it loads. Speaking of Jacob Trouba, who the Pens saw tonight, he hasn't been the same since he left Winnipeg. Also, like he's played well for New York, but he hasn't played that great either. So. All right, let's go to.
I think the one thing though, like you look at the Rangers, a lot of people are like, okay, the rebuild is right there. Like this team could make the playoffs this year. Well, I mean, the fact of the matter is you have a string of 2 good weeks, and any team could make the playoffs in this weird season. And excuse me. And when I look at the Rangers, like, yeah, they're a decent team. I still think they're a year or two away.
So who are we?
They have some young talent. Lafreniere hasn't been. Go ahead.
Zibanejad's great. I love Mika Zibanejad. Oh, I love that guy.
Yeah.
Like I mean, he plays and he plays hard, skates hard. I mean, he plays the game the right way. And could you imagine if these guys all stayed in Ottawa? You got like Mike Hoffman, Stone, Zibanejad. Wow. I mean, they would have a fantastic team.
Yeah.
Who are we looking for? Columbus or Winnipeg?
Columbus second line center.
I would have to. I mean, because it has everybody listed as forward. Boone Jenner, Nick Foligno, Oliver Bjorkstrand.
Boone Jenner's not even there anymore. Boone Jenner's in.
Yeah, he's in Chicago. Or no, wait.
No, he's.
I can't remember where he's
no,
at.
Boone Jenner is still there. I was thinking Josh Anderson.
Josh Anderson's the one that, yeah, he's gone. But yeah, Gustav Nyquist would have probably been Miku Koivu. Those guys are centers. They would have probably both been. They're both on IR, so that's not happening. Grigorenko. I mean, but honestly, I mean, it looks like Bjorkstrand, Max Domi. I mean, Max Domi's probably playing second line.
Max Domi's their second line center.
And then Nick Foligno's their third line center with Cam Atkinson. Yeah, but yeah, there's no talent on that team. Besides, I mean,
no, it's
Bjorkstrand's not bad.
I mean, so you take your top line center out.
Sheesh.
What's that?
Sheesh. That team's terrible. It was painful to look at.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a rough group. You know, it really is. I mean, there's guys there that have talent, but are they really?
Yeah.
You know, like I said, they have a couple of pieces where they could certainly be a Stanley Cup team in the not too distant future. But if you trade Dubois for Line A, that's not solving the problem. You know, and I think, you know, well, you know, Columbus is Columbus. You know.
Yeah, it's going to be a while before they get back to anything that's respectable. All right, hey, since we're still at the beginning of the season, we'll go over some, like I checked out some milestones that could be reached this season. Single one is Alain Vigneault entering his second season with Philadelphia. Yeah, Philadelphia. Vigneault is 689, 456, and 105 with 35 ties and 1,285 games during 17 seasons with Montreal, Vancouver, Rangers, Flyers. He only needs 11 more wins. This was before the season started to reach 700. So most likely he's going to reach that here shortly. Barry Trotz is closing in on coaching 1,700 games. Lindy Ruff is closing in on coaching 1,500 games. Goalie wins. Ryan Miller is, let's see, how many games? He needs 13 to become the 14th goalie to reach 400 wins. He had 9 wins for Anaheim last season and won at least 13 games with Vancouver. If he plays 20 games, Miller can also become the 17th goalie to play 800 games. I really don't see Ryan Miller catching that 400th win. I mean, I just don't see it happening.
I don't see him getting 800 games either.
Okay, the number
I
is...
don't see him breaking either one of those milestones.
No. The one I do see happening, and this name has been really hot on the trade market right now, and Buffalo supposedly is the front runner, with 485 reachable wins this season. Marc-Andre the Flower Fleury, entering his 4th season with the Vegas Golden Knights. Fleury has 466 wins and is 19 away from passing Ed Belfour at 484 for 4th on the NHL list. Fleury, who has won at least 27 games 10 times in his past 12 seasons, needs 34 wins to become the 3rd goalie with at least 500. Marty Brodeur has 691, which will never be caught, and Patrick Waugh has 551. That's reachable for certain goaltenders. I mean, and Fleury's actually still plays well. Uh, if he sticks with the right team, even though he's 34 years old.
Yeah,
I mean, he
34
could catch.
35 right there.
He could possibly catch up to Patrick Waugh, maybe even pass him. I mean, that's 3 to 4 years, and granted, if they play a full season, there's that possibility he could pass Patrick Waugh. I don't see anybody ever catching Marty Brodeur. 691 wins.
No, I don't think anybody.
Yeah.
No, I can't see anybody getting past Brodeur, and I think even Waugh would be tough to catch. Flower has a chance. It all depends on whether or not he stays. To me,
his best opportunity is in Vegas.
I have two first. If the Buffalo rumors do to win the cup, absolutely. If he were to go, my guess is he's going to end up in Seattle. I honestly think he's going to be their expansion pick next year.
Yeah,
because they have Leonard. They're going to need a starting goalie. He's already done the expansion thing once. I mean, if he goes to Buffalo, I mean that's a big get for Buffalo. Buffalo's not a bad team. You look at that roster. That top line of Hall, Eichel, and Reinhart is outstanding. Yep. Eric Stahl still has some in the tank. Victor Olofsson is a heck of a winger. And then, I mean, their bottom six is solid. Their defense is a little bit suspect. I don't love it. But they're missing a goaltender. Carter Hutton is not a number one goalie.
He's a number two at best. And he's always been a number two. I mean, the kid's not bad. I mean, he's no Casey DeSmith, but he's definitely not bad. And also, congratulations to Pierre-Olivier Joseph on his first NHL point tonight, too, in his debut. Get the apple on, I think it was McCann's goal. Or no, it was Teddy Bluger's goal. My bad. The pass off the boards. Yeah, I just happened to be I looked up and I saw they were talking to Jared McCann. So, but other milestones that 1,000 points could be reached for Getzlaf and Kopitar. Let's see. Getzlaf needs 35 points for 1,000. He also needs 24 points to pass Teemu Selanne for first in Ducks history. Kopitar needs 50 points for 1,000 points. I don't know if he'll reach that this year. Kopitar's kind of fallen off. So has Getzlaf. They both have kind of fallen off. I could see Getzlaf getting his 1,000 points because, 35 points. He may get it at the beginning of next year. Kopitar, same thing. They're in the 56 games. I don't see them, but either one of them getting 1,000 points this season. Games played milestones. There's a dozen players who could reach that 1,000 games mark. Is Travis Zajac, Shea Weber, Sidney Crosby needs like 10 games now. Keith Yandel and Patrick Kane. Zdeno Chara is closing in on 1,600 games, and he is 47 games away from becoming the 13th player with at least 1,600 games played. That's insane. Oh, and speaking of insane, the ever ageless wonder Patrick Marleau is at 1,768 games. If he plays at least 45 games this season, Marleau will pass Gordie Howe for first in NHL history. The San Jose Sharks forward, who is entering his 23rd NHL season, has not missed a game during his past 11 seasons. The last time he did not play was April 7th of 2009. That's insane. When you think about it, if he plays 45 games this year, he would be the all-time games played player. And Gordie Howe played until he was 75.
Yeah.
Could you imagine if they counted?
Yeah, that speaks a lot to Marleau.
Yeah, he's been healthy. And he's been a steady player. I wish it would have went better for him here because I do like Patrick Marleau. He's a good hockey player. and his wife sharing his school photos of him wearing Pittsburgh Penguins stuff was fantastic. His wife was quite comical on Twitter. Um, but yeah,
Yeah.
there's a few like, and then now we got the goals. Zach Parise and Jeff Carter and Patrick Kane. Kane is 11 goals away from Chicago's. Let's see. After 11 goals away after the Chicago Blackhawks forward scored 33 last season. He has scored at least 21 in each of his 13 seasons. Parise is 14 from the milestone, as he had 25 last season. Carter, who scored 17 goals with LA last year, needs 18 goals. And the forward hasn't scored that many in a season since 2016, 2017. I don't see Jeff Carter getting there unless he plays 4 more years.
Patrick Kane is really the only one I could see.
Parise hasn't played bad the last 2 years. Like last year, Parise actually was surprising because he stayed healthy, which shocked the hell out of everybody, I think. But the other one is Alexander Ovechkin. It's 709. It can get to 709 goals. The Washington Capitals forward needs 3 goals to pass Hall of Famer Mike Gartner at 708 for 7th on the NHL's all-time list. Ovechkin is 11 behind Phil Esposito for 6th at 717, and 25 behind Marcel Dion with 731 for 5th. Ovechkin is also 48 games from 1,200 in his NHL career. And the funny thing is if Sidney Crosby did not get an elbow to the head by Steckel and an elbow to the back of the net by, was that Victor Hedman? Right? Was it Hedman?
Hedman or Strawman, one of those two.
It was Hedman. Hedman going in the corner, and it was just a regular routine, just a regular check. It was nothing malicious. Crosby would be around those 1,200 game mark. And could you imagine his numbers if he would have stayed healthy? Like, I honestly think he'd be up there with, in the 500-600 goal range by then. I mean, if he would have stayed healthy those 2 seasons. So those are some milestones that, will be reached this season or could be reached this season. Some of these guys are, a little long in the tooth and they're starting to, Father Time's undefeated. So I don't see some of these guys getting to the milestones that they could. I mean, if they reach them, good for them. If not, Father Time wins again. But the goals for Ovechkin, I don't even know if he'll even pass Gretzky because they said he has to have 40 goals for the next 5 years or 6 years or something like that for him to even come close to catching Gretzky.
Like that, yeah.
And that's one of the arguments I've always been annoyed with is Gretzky's the greatest player of all time, blah, blah, blah. Gretzky was great. Don't get me wrong. But when you look at who that guy played with, he played with Yuri Curry, Glenn Anderson. That roster were all Hall of Famers.
Yeah.
You can't. And then you go back and you look at Lemieux. Who did Lemieux play with? Doug Bodger, Phil Bork, Robbie Bryan. He really didn't get any. Troy Loney. He didn't really get anybody until the late in his career, and that was 90. Around 1990, he ended up with Kevin Stevens and Mark Recchi, and then when they traded for, Francis and Mullen and and a Yager comes in, and that's when you really thought you were like, Jesus, if Lemieux would have had the cast of characters that Gretzky had, Lemieux's numbers would have been off the charts.
And if Lemieux would have stayed healthy.
Absolutely.
Lemieux's numbers, even with the cast around him, if he was healthy, probably are a lot closer to Wayne Gretzky for sure.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. There's they do that. I hear it on the Mount Rushmore of the NHL was Gretzky, Lemieux, Orr, and Howe. Gordie Howe, yeah, but me personally, I mean, I think it should be more than just those 4 guys because Bobby Orr was great, but Rocket Richard, dude. Like, I mean, I was watching old school Montreal Canadiens like cup games. Wow, was that
Mhm.
guy flipping dominant? He wasn't the biggest guy, but he could flat out fly, and he could shoot the puck like you ain't never seen. Even guys in this day and age, they don't shoot the puck like he did, But
No,
I mean, the other thing is goaltenders
and they
suck
all
back.
did it with flat stick.
Yeah, and goaltenders were
Yeah,
garbage.
goal. Yeah,
Goaltenders were garbage.
yeah. I mean,
Here's the other thing with Gretzky's numbers, they're kind of tainted because goalies really were bad back then. Goalies, they didn't go into the butterfly stance. They didn't. They were. Oh my god, they were god awful. You sit there and watch, and
yeah,
the other thing is like the the size of the pads. Like when you watch Lemieux come down and you see him scoring against John Casey and the Minnesota North Stars in the Cup Finals on that breakaway where he puts his skate right in John Casey's cup. Um, John Casey's pads were like this big.
yeah.
Why?
Yeah, the size of his leg. Yeah,
Yeah, they were small, they were tiny, and I give guys like John Van Beesbrook, Mike Richter. Mike Richter, who was number 2 behind Marty Brodeur for me, as one of my favorite goaltenders. Like I loved Mike Richter because Mike Richter was small and he was so quick and agile side to side. It was impressive considering how small the pads were for these people. These guys now they got pads that cover the bottom of the net when they go down to their knees, and that's why scoring's down. But here's the other thing: is goaltenders now. These kids who play goalie, none of them are under 6'3", 6'4". All these kids
yeah,
that play are tall. And
yeah.
I mean, it's amazing. But what are you gonna do? We'll see what happens with the rest of the season.
Yeah.
Hopefully, maybe we can see if Sully will let Kasperi Kapanen play on that top line with Sid and Gensel. See what happens. I don't know. I kind of like him playing with Teddy Bluger. I do because you figure Bluger and I think it was Dominic Simone ended up. They played with Leon Draisaitl in the championships a couple years ago.
Yeah.
So Teddy Bluger can play. He can, and the kid's got skill. And playing with Leon Draisaitl, who's I'm sorry, I hate to say it, he's one of my absolute favorite players. He's one of the most underrated guys too, because of McJesus out there in Edmonton. He gets he's not as credited as he should be. I mean, considering he won the scoring title last year.
Right.
But I mean, there was somebody who posted on our page that had who's the face of the NFL. They had Patrick Mahomes. Who's the face of MMA was Conor McGregor. They had different faces, like Ronaldo was for soccer. I mean, honestly, I wouldn't have a clue for soccer, to be honest, and that's probably who I would say is probably Ronaldo or Beckham, even though Beckham really doesn't do anything. Yeah, well, yeah, and I was just about to say, or Messi was the other. Those are the only 3 names that I know in soccer, and I hate to tell you that because I know you're a soccer fan, and soccer don't matter, but
Debatable. It's the world's game, sir.
Yeah, it gets no ratings here, pal.
It's not too early in the morning.
Oh yeah, that too. But the face of the NHL, they say is Connor McDavid. I want to say yes, but I also still sit there and say if you would walk up to somebody on the street and say, "Name me an NHL player," and not just in especially you can't do that here in Pittsburgh because everybody's going to say Sid. Even if you went to Bismarck, North Dakota, name me somebody who plays in the NHL. Sid or Ovi. I still think those two are neck and neck for the face of the NHL still.
Agreed.
The McDavid would be probably a hot third, but other than that, I mean, you go down south, go down into Florida, or down towards anywhere in the south. Say, hey, who's the face in the NHL? A lot of people say Kucherov. I mean, because they he's hot down in Tampa Bay, and it sucks that he's not playing because he's excellent player, real quiet, like he's one of those guys that is very underrated because you don't hear about him because of him playing in the market that he plays in. Because Steven Stamkos is the star. But yeah, like Draisaitl, plays second fiddle to McDavid, and it is what it is. But I mean, the thing that Draisaitl does that McDavid does, I think Draisaitl plays a better defensive style of center than McDavid does. McDavid does have decent speed, but Draisaitl is very underrated with his speed because he's a bigger guy.
I think Draisaitl is a better all-around player.
Yeah.
I think McDavid is the best player off the rush because of his speed. But he also looked like I look at Nathan McKinnon out in Colorado, and I honestly think that he is probably the best all-around player because of his speed and because of just his all-around game. I would probably put him above McDavid. To me, I mean, Sid's numbers are not what Sid's numbers were, but, it's hard to argue that Sid is still not one of the top 3 players in the game.
Yeah. I like Rantanen out there, too, out in Colorado. Rantanen's that dude, he's fantastic. There are a lot of new young, the Sebastian Ahos, Artemi Panarin. He's fantastic too. He's a great playmaker. He reminds me a lot of Ronnie Francis. That's who he reminds me of. He's one of those guys that can score, but he has great vision and he's a great playmaker. And he's really good at face-offs. I'm looking at they're showing the standings. It's Caps, Flyers, Islanders, Pens, Devils, Bruins, Rangers, Sabres. That's from the top down. Do you think the Pens are going to make the playoffs? And I mean, they got to finish in the top 4.
I think they're good enough to make the playoffs. As they're constituted right now, I don't think they're good enough to win the cup. If I had to pick a team out of this division, as much as I hate to say it, the Flyers are good.
Yeah, but they just got their asses handed to them the past couple games too, though, and
they have. But you know what? They have, I think, probably the youngest. Yeah, I mean, they have the youngest roster of the what I would consider to be the contenders, and I think they have the best all-around roster of the contenders. Washington's still very good, but they're definitely old. They have more tired legs.
Their defensive core is not
Penguins, good. No, it's old, it's slow, and you have Carlson.
I mean,
I look at Boston.
Yeah. No, you're good. Go ahead.
When I look at Boston, if Pasternak is healthy, that top line is still good. That's a solid top 12. Their defense is a little suspect, but Boston is typically a good defensive team up and down the lineup, and they have 2 good goalies, whether it's Rask or Halak. So it's hard for me to pick against them. I would say they are probably the most likely to come out of this division. It wouldn't surprise me if the Flyers do.
Yeah,
I think Washington is still a playoff team, but
the Islanders are the one team that I think could actually beat Philly in this division, coming out of this.
I think the Islanders have that ability to beat anybody, but they're not flashy. I don't think they have enough to carry them past.
They don't have enough.
They can't win a Stanley Cup.
Yeah.
No,
Like
they can't win the Stanley Cup.
the thing with Boston, everybody says, "Oh, with Chara being gone, that hurts." No, 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 no. Torrey Krug
That
being
helps.
gone hurts them big time. I mean, because Torrey Krug but he's not really doing so well out in St. Louis. He is not playing well out there at all, which is sad because he is a great defenseman. As much as I hate Boston, also, Charlie McAvoy is a great defenseman. I mean, he's
yes, absolutely.
I mean, he's not top 10, obviously. I mean, it's hard to like come up with things like your top 10, like top 10 defensemen. You got like a Roman Yossi, uh, Zach Werenski. Letang's not on that list. He is not even close.
No.
Seth Jones, Cale Makar, Quinn Hughes. I mean, there's a lot of these young defensemen are the ones that are like amazing. Like D'Angelo and Fox in New York, John Marino. These young and upcoming. John Marino gets kind of left off of that little list, like with the rookie of the year stuff. I know he was like a behind D'Angelo on that, like when they were going through for defensemen. Like it was like Makar and Hughes were running away with it. I mean, because they were both fantastic. But he like John Marino was a quiet like fourth, fifth place in that running.
Yeah.
And that's a good problem to have for us, you know what I mean, which is nice.
Yeah.
I just wish one of the guys that, I mean, we're kind of jumbling around here. I mean, with the Pens, I would have loved to have seen Sam Poulin make this roster. I mean, he's got great size. When we saw him at the up at the Cranberry Center with doing the prospect camp, he was like a man amongst boys up there. Like he was dominant.
Yeah.
And Nathan Legare was another one. I would have loved to see, like, they say, oh, most likely next year those guys will make the roster. How are they going to make the roster? I mean, honestly, I mean, we'll have to take a look at Cap Friendly to see whose contracts are up and who's going to end up going to, you know, who's going to be the people who are up for, you know, the expansion draft and this, that, and the other thing, and the trade deadline this year.
I was going to say, it wouldn't surprise me if one or both of them is on the roster next year. I think this year is going to be a strange year for most teams because you look at a team, a perfect example of that is the Rangers. The Rangers are a good team. They're going to be a great team. And if the Rangers are in contention at the deadline, do you go and you add a piece to maybe, quote unquote, take you over the edge to be a real contender? If I'm the GM of the Rangers, I don't do it this year. I hold on to another round of first and second round picks, and I keep them for next year and the year after. And then next year, the year after, when Shesterkin is, you know, a couple years in and settled, that defensive core settled, you get guys like Lafreniere and Capo and Zibanejad and Panarin. You know, you get them settled out. That's going to be a team that wins the Stanley Cup. Now, on the other side of that, the Penguins. I don't think there's a move the Penguins can really make that is going to dramatically change their chances to win the Stanley Cup this year. So if I'm JR, I'm not looking to make a big move. I would rather see them just stand pat, try to work with the roster they have.
Picks. Or trade a couple guys away to get picks. I mean, I wouldn't be opposed to that
exactly.
either. Because I'm looking at Cap Friendly right now. I mean, there's like Rust, Kapanen, McCann all have 2 years left, along with Gino. The single-year guys are Colton Sevier. I'd be trying to think about maybe giving that guy an extension because he's fit in very, very well. And I love the speed that he brings. And he is the Pascal Dupuis of that Marian Hossa trade. You know what I mean? Oh, we're getting Matheson.
Yes.
And we're going to throw in Colton Seaver here. But Colton Seaver I thought, was fantastic. And a lot of people were like, oh, who's this effing guy? I, I was like, Colton. I was like, dude, he's a great penalty killer. He's got great speed. And,
Yeah.
him playing with Teddy Bluger and bringing in Mark Jankowski, too, was another big move for GMJR because
that worked well.
Him and Tanev played great together in college. They were great line mates. And
Agreed.
That was instant chemistry right off the bat with those guys. And but Sevier, Bluger, Jankowski, and Rodriguez are all 1 year. Sevier's a UFA and Rodriguez is a UFA. Bluger and Jankowski are RFAs. Cody Cece's on a 1 year deal. John Marino, you don't have to worry about him anytime soon. He's locked.
Yep.
Chad Ruweedle's got 1 year left after this. Letang's got the 2 years of modified no trade clause. Oh, excuse me, same with Dumoulin, who has 3 years left.
Yeah. So here's the interesting thing going forward. I had heard, I believe it was on NBCSN's coverage the other night, that the only players that you must hold or protect in the expansion draft are a full no movement clause. So that would be Sid, that would be Gino. So theoretically,
and Letang
does not have a full no movement clause. He could be exposed in the expansion draft.
Well,
it wouldn't surprise me if they do it.
On Cap Friendly here, it has him as modified no trade clause, comma, no movement clause. The no movement clause means he's not going anywhere. So that kind of sucks.
But that depends on when the no movement was.
Yeah. He has to put his X amount of teams. Brandon Tanev and Jason Zucker have that also. The modified no trade clause. So, we'll have to get some clarification on exactly what that means for them. I don't see Tanev going anywhere. I love everything he's brought to this team. Jason Zucker, personally, I'd rather see him playing with Gino, or not with Sid, and him and Gensel flop. You know what I mean? Because, you look at one of Gino's best years the past couple of years is when he was playing with Gensel. And Zucker, when he came here after the trade deadline and played with Sid, he was lighting it up. It's frustrating. The other thing is, you're going to have to rebuild some of this defense somehow, some way. Because obviously Letang and Dumoulin are your guys who are long in the tooth. Granted, they're only, Dumoulin's 29. And Letang's 33 going 34.
34 going 35.
Everybody talks about how, these guys are so old. Yeah, granted, they've been around 14, 15, 16 years. But the thing is they're in their early 30s still. It's not really like that they're old. They're not Patrick Marleau. They're not Zdeno Chara. They're not Joe Thornton. And when he scored the other night.
God, no. I think go ahead.
He scored the other night, and the look on his face was like it was his first NHL goal because I guess he didn't expect to score. You know what I mean? And to be honest with you, Toronto, they're not that good. They got some good young talent, but those guys need to play somewhere else. Some of those, like Hyman and Nylander, those guys need to go somewhere else because
this is the year for Toronto. This is the year. If they cannot win, if they cannot get to the conference finals in this setup, this team is never going to work. The fact of the matter is you have over half of your salary cap tied up in Matthews, Tavares, Marner, and Nylander. And Matthews is the best of the bunch, and I think he's the most underpaid of the bunch. And quite frankly, Tavares is not the player he was. Marner, to me, is overrated. Nylander
Very.
is overrated. They don't have a great defense, and Freddie Anderson is not going to take them to a cup. That being
I think
said, if they're going to do it, this is the year to do it.
I think Nylander's playing on the wrong line. He needs to play with somebody who
Probably.
he can set up. I think he just needs to be put somewhere else. But I mean, I don't know. I could be wrong. But anyways, my friend, this was totally enjoyable. It's great getting to catch up. Great fodder back and forth. Hopefully, we'll get to do this again. Let me know when you're free. We'll get your sorry rear end back on here, Mr. Homeowner. And then we'll we got plenty of games left the rest of the season. Hopefully, when it starts warming up, we'll get the projector up and we'll get the screen up back, and then we can watch some games out there and we can do some live feeds from back there. Tell the missus I said hello.
That'd be great.
And, yeah, definitely take care, and we'll see everybody soon. Yeah, you don't have to go anywhere yet. We're just going to end the broadcast here. So, all right, everybody, take care.